Good evening, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. As you all know, the topic is behavioral economics behind the job market, and we're doing it with Coach Melboy. Interesting topic. What might this be about, right? So, we're starting in about 5 minutes. I hope everyone's ready for the webinar. Just in case you don't know, we're on live on Facebook. So, if you're shy to show your face, you just turn off the camera, but if you would like to show your beautiful faces live on Facebook, that's okay too. So thank you again for coming. We're starting in about 5 minutes. So if anyone needs to go on their CR break, just go ahead. We'll be live in about 5 minutes. Thank you. And we are about to begin. Again, thank you so much for coming to our webinar tonight. Good evening. I hope everyone's ready. If you're hungry, no worries. You can just eat during the webinar. No problem at all. So, just to start, we have some housekeeping rules for those who are here in the webinar tonight in Zoom. You are required to be on time, so the doors will be closed once the webinar starts. I won't be accepting any more people coming in. So I also would like to request that you mute your device to avoid any unnecessary noise during the webinar tonight. So for any questions that you might have, you may just drop a chat in our chat, or actually we will also be sharing a Mentimeter website where you can plug in your questions and we can answer them on screen. We'd also love to hear about your experience after the webinar, so please do give us some feedback after the end of this session. So, so we can start now. Thank you everyone for coming. I'd like to shine some light on Melboy. Melboy, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
Okay,
good.
great. So, everyone, this is Coach Melboy. So I'd like to ask Coach Melboy to introduce himself for this webinar and please make everyone at home.
Absolutely. Good evening to all of you here in the Zoom call, but also to those watching us on Facebook. Allow me to introduce myself shortly. You can call me Coach Melboy. No need for sir. Bawal yun. Um, quick about my background. I'm an executive advisor. I have a degree in economics. I studied a master's in strategic management. I currently handle GrowApp.ph, which is a business registration solutions company, and I'm also part of the Cambridge Leaders Network. So that's just quickly about me. Um, Danica, anything else before we proceed?
Well, that's it. I'm very excited for this webinar. I hope everyone is as well. So maybe you're wondering, this is behavioral economics. Am I going to talk about econ here, like theories or something? You will, but this is more of the application of behavioral economics in your entire life, in your career to be specific. So I'm pretty excited to hear your reactions. So go ahead, Coach Melboy. Just let me know if you
Right.
want to go to the next slide because I'll be controlling this screen right
Sure,
here.
sure, no problem. No, and again, just to tap into what Danica was saying, while behavioral economics is a whole field in itself and really a topic that takes a lot more time and years to cover, today really my objective is to teach you and to show you an insider look into behavioral economics and its applications. So it's going to be a bit geeky, so please bear with me, but I will focus on the real world applications. Some of you here might be students, some of you might be looking for a job, or you're currently in a job and thinking of switching, or whether this might be an actual choice for you, or you're a business owner, or actually on the recruiter end. If that's the case, this webinar is for you. There will be insights for all of you here. Again, we will focus on tips and tricks and helping you understand why the opposite table, the recruiters behave the way that they do whenever they speak to you or interact with you. And we mostly hear tips on how the applicant should behave on during in their job hunting process, but we rarely actually hear explanations on the behavior of the recruiter. And that is exactly what we will review today. So may I ask Danica to go to the next slide for us? All right, so this is really the main question for today. Why do employers and recruiters behave the way they do? So I think, Danica, now let's quickly gauge their views by doing
Yes.
this quick survey. No?
Yes,
And I
we'll be
always believe,
having
guys, the more
yes, we'll
interactive, the better.
yes, we'll be having a quick survey right now. I'll be sending a link in our Zoom meeting chat for everyone to see. And once everyone's there, I will be sharing the screen to which the board or this particular link is at. Okay, so everyone sees the link, right? I'm about to share where it is at. Okay, so guys, feel free to share some insights.
Right? The question was, and the main question for today is, why do employers and recruiters behave the way they do to you? So what do you think explains their behavior? So actually, there are no wrong answers here. Anything that pops up will do. So go ahead.
Gahaman daw sila. Okay, any other answer?
Okay, interesting one.
That's interesting. Never thought about that one. Okay, new answer. They behave the
Ayun,
way
I think that's
they.
mhm. Ah,
Ay, kita
real
pa.
time
Oo,
typing,
kita.
I
Kita to
guess.
dear. Yes, kita to dear. Okay, we're just going to wait for some answers. Ikaw, Melboy, what do you think? Um why do recruiters and employers behave the way they do? I mean, just a simple answer,
Hmm.
not to reveal much about what the
Hmm.
deck is going to show.
How do I give out an answer? Uh,
Siguro nung fresh grad ka,
hmm.
tingin mo.
Uh,
Bakit nga
no, I
ba?
think no, I think I was super nervous. When I came out of academics and applied for my first job, like, why do these people never reply on time?
Yeah, I know,
So
right?
they
They
never
don't
get
reply
back
on
to me.
time. Yeah, actually, totoo
Or like
yan.
months after, Danica, no, months after, that's the only time they'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't make the cut." And I'm like,
Nako,
that's 3 months after I applied.
Nako, mas malala. Na-experience ko na, nag-apply ako for a job. After 3 months, nag-follow up ako. Ang sabi ng recruiter, pinag-iisipan pa raw nila. Di po, wala pang decision. 3 months na.
Uh,
Okay. They behave the way they do because they are fishing for specific information that they are asked to find for. Okay. Meron pa dito, quota. You're not wrong. They act as such since firms and recruiters want to profit from their worker and workers want to gain income. Okay. Okay. They behave the way they do because they are looking for specific qualities. Fair. Very fair. Okay. Any other answers? No more? Okay, I think that's it for now. Maybe we can proceed. Oh, here, merong bago. They treat
oh, okay.
employees as
Kaya may nagsabi, trip lang.
trip lang daw. Baka nga. Trip lang nila
You always have those
magganon-ganon.
situations. You always have those.
Power play. You might not be wrong. Okay, so I guess we can move on from this. So,
Let's keep. Mm-mm.
oh, more answers.
Oh, there are more coming in.
They treat employees. Oh, well, okay. Maganda yung mga sagot dito. It's showing us the perspective of candidates, which actually is very important, right? So, Coach Melboy, anong feedback mo? What do you think about this?
You know, I think we read a lot of articles on how applicants behave, or applicants feel about how recruiters react, and I think that perfectly shows here, right? So, power play, trip lang. That is really the recruiter side. But again, the question remains from their end, on the recruiter's end, and I see a couple of answers here. Um, what drives them, right? Um, why do they choose applicants and why do they decline applicants? Why do they go over your CV and not over a different CV? So those are the back of mind questions. But again, I think
Yes.
these are very right races. We see both sides of the table. We see the side of the recruiter, the hiring manager, and we also see the side of the applicant. Mostly on the applicant is what I'm seeing here.
Yes, that's right. Interesting to note what will happen next in this deck or this presentation now. Okay, everyone, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And now this is the juicy part. We're going to talk about the entire thing. Okay, so why do employers and recruiters behave the way they do to you, Melboy?
That's the real question. And again, today we will focus on the recruiter side. And we will focus on how you can actually take advantage if you know and are aware of why they behave a certain way. So moving on to the next slide, Danica, behavioral economics. So again, I will not do a real deep dive on this. I will not go too academic Some of you might have never heard actually of behavioral economics. Some of you might already know a bit about this. I think there are a few economists in the call. But why should we even bother about it, right? It sounds kind of nerdy, and what is it really? Um, so definition here would really be combining the insights from psychology, judgment, and decision making and economics to generate a more accurate understanding of human behavior of recruiters and job seekers. Danica, is my voice clear enough for the audience to hear?
Well, I can hear you, but I think some of our participants can't hear you very well.
Is it too soft, too loud?
A
Do
little
you
bit
guys hear
soft.
background noise?
Yes, a
All
little
right,
bit
let
soft.
me give me 5 seconds. Maybe you can feel. I'll adjust my settings.
All right.
What about now, guys?
Okay, better.
Is,
Much
is this
better.
better?
Yes,
All
much
right, all right,
better.
great to hear. Okay, with that we can proceed. Um, so just to pinpoint some of the learning objectives that were raised, we saw when you guys registered communication hacks, how to be better at interviews, job market insights for the economists here, career opportunities perhaps, and real world applications. And let me just emphasize again, we will focus on the practical side of things. How to find a better career was also raised, how to deal with tricky interview questions. And here's the most important one, and I think this stood out for me, the reality of the job market. And that exactly is what we'll pinpoint. So moving on to the next slide, just to start off with a question for all of you here. Are we as humans, do we always make rational decisions? Are we really rational beings? The reason why I bring this up is while academic and economic theory suggests that humans are inherently rational, in reality, we are really not. And we don't really make rational decisions every single time. And really, behavioral economics suggests that psychological, cognitive, emotional, cultural, and social factors really impact our decisions. So basically, it's what are you influenced by? Who are the people around you? What happened in your past? All of those different factors explain and impact the way that we behave right now. And so, essentially, we are a mix of emotions. We make decisions based on whatever we have experienced. And I'm pretty sure, just to give you a sort of an example, that perhaps here there are people in the call or the people watching on Facebook who've done some impulse buying last year. 11, 11, 12, 12. I see Danica smiling. Maybe she has been fallen victim to that. She's laughing, so I guess she has been a victim of that. So when you look back at those kind of buying decisions, did you really need those items? I have to be honest. I was a victim too. I'm an economist already. So that just really proves that all of us, we don't always make rational decisions. So most of the time, we're driven by emotions. We're driven by pressure, pressure from media, pressure from people around us. And perhaps there are like other irrational stuff that we've done in the past, more crazy than or crazier than the 11-11 or 12-12 shopping sprees that you guys had. I won't go into detail. Probably not safe for this webinar, but yet, what's most important here is that we have to be aware that people are not perfect. We are irrational. That holds true for the applicant. That also holds true for the recruiter and the hiring manager. So both ends of the table are irrational. And today I'll focus on how you can use that irrational behavior to your advantage as you go out into the job market, whether you're applying for a new job or for your first job, or whether you're actually on the end of the recruiter side and just being aware of it. So you can see this sort of a persuasion 101, and when you know and understand how people really, really make these decisions. With that, let's move on to the next slide. Now getting to the real juice, what explains irrational human behavior? Now, we saw a couple of answers already given earlier. Um, but in general, so actually in academics, because I know there are a lot of students in this call, when we do problem solving in academics, the assumption most of the time is that there is no real time constraint, or sometimes during exams, but if you're doing just your tasks, all info is at your disposal, is given to you, and unlimited resources or simply the money is there. It's just a number on your sheet. Um, but in real life, those are not always given. Most of the time, they're not given. In real life, people really make shortcuts to decide about certain things. Why? There are three things. So because one, there's limited time, so you don't always have the whole time to sort of figure out what to do. At the same time, you also have a lack of information. Um, that's what Google is for. Google mo na lang. Just Google it, right? So, I mean, it's not always at our disposal. Although Google is there, but certainly there's still research time involved. And also limited financial resources. Um, so based on these three factors, time, limited info, limited financial resources, limited money, just to make it easy, we all make shortcuts whenever we decide about certain things, how we act. For example, the students. When I was a student, I had a lack of information because they always say, hey, for your entry job, you need to have a bit of experience. And I was like, how do I get experience? I've never had a job. But that's really a common issue, right? And I think most of you might be able to relate to that. And then I'm like, so I asked my friends and families for advice on where to apply because I've never had a real job. So meaning I had a lack of info. So I decided to take the shortcut by asking my friends and family. But those are the ones affecting my decision, right? Because if they say apply to this particular company, you'll get in. Well, I have never seen the 99 other companies out there, right? So I took a mental shortcut. For those who are employed in the call and on Facebook, lack of time to apply for a job. If you're perhaps not happy with your job and you've been looking for a job for the longest period of time, but you're working still full time, so you don't have all the time of your own to look for a new job. So you will just make a decision based on what you already know about certain companies that are out there. Maybe you're looking at three companies, but because of lack of time, you're not able to look at the seven other companies that also might also be a very good fit for you. So again, mental shortcut that again affects your decision. Business owners, if there are business owners in the call, lack of money. Candidates who ask for higher salaries may be declined, but that person might actually be the one you really need, given their skill set. But because you're constrained by the budget, because of you simply don't have the money to pay that person, you make a mental shortcut and you decide not to pursue. So it's not an optimal decision. So sort of irrational because the most rational decision would be to go for that person who has the best skills. But again, because you're constrained, you don't do so. So those are the mental shortcuts for different types of people. So Danica, let's move on to the next slide. Now, here's the juicy part because now that you know these three factors that influence our thinking, again, lack of info, lack of time, lack of financial resources, how do we then use irrationality and behavioral economics to your advantage? Again, persuasion 101. I'll keep it very simple. Um, I'll give you three major concepts. So the first economic concept is the scarcity effect. Um, so again, so the decision here, the definition here is when an object or a resource is less readily available. For example, because there's a limited quantity or time, we tend to perceive it as more valuable. Are people here sort of aware of the Supreme brand? I like to give this example. Supreme is known for its marketing and it's quite expensive. It's not your average thing that you can buy. Then once they put I think it was a brick, not sure. They put a brand on it, and the brick just skyrocketed in value because it was sort of scarce, perceived as scarce. Some of you might have questioned, well, why would I buy a brick with the Supreme brand on it, right? But because it was scarce and people perceive it to be of higher value, the price went up. Now, also in the marketplace, if I'm a recruiter, and I receive 1,000 CVs per day. Okay, 1,000 is a bit unrealistic, so a bit exaggerated, but again, I receive too many CVs per day. I only have limited time, right? So I won't have the time to look at it, but what are you doing to make yourself stand out? If I receive 100 generic CVs and there are 5 CVs which are quite different, and they really pinpoint what I'm looking for, those 5 will stand out. Again, why? Because they really stand. I mean, they provide me something that is of higher value that makes, and they're scarce because there are only 5 of them. If you're doing what the rest is doing, it's hard for you to stand out. So here, really, and I'll go into that later, it's really been distinct as opposed to the rest. Now, the second economic theory is the behavioral economic theory is the overconfidence effect. So, definition here: when people's subjective confidence in their own ability is greater than their actual performance. So, a lot of people like to think that they're very good at driving, but there are a lot of they're like, oh, in reality, they're actually not. So that's a typical example. But what it really comes down to is that people underestimate the length of time it takes them to complete a task, or more importantly, what job seeking really entails, or what the job description really means. Um, so, to give an example, um, some of you may have seen my background. Um, I graduated cum laude, master's in strategic management, but it didn't always open doors for me. Gotta be honest that um, there were a couple of interviews where I was quite embarrassed. I mean, it opened some doors and I was in the interview, but a certain part of me, and just to be real with everyone, um, certain part of me was sort of arrogant. And it's sort of, oh, I got my credentials. I don't need to research on this company. I don't need to find out what they're struggling with. And then the recruiter saw right through it. And that was actually the reason why I got declined for a couple of jobs. So again, overconfidence effect. Always stay grounded and be humble. Be humble by efforting, by putting a lot of effort in understanding what you're really applying for. Also, the last one here, status quo bias, behavior economic theory, status quo bias, meaning that people prefer the way that they are now rather than, um, sort of sticking to their current situation. Um, we all know New Year's resolutions. I hope you guys made yours. How are you doing today? Isn't it harder to sort of change the way you are than sort of be where you are right now? So that's a typical example. It also really shows in the recruiters. Recruiters are hiring for a position because they want to change a certain situation within the company. Whether the company is doing well and they're expanding in terms of the number of branches, they're launching new services. Perhaps they need more marketing and salespeople, or they need developers, or they need more research in terms of economists. They always want to change a certain situation. On the other end, if the company is not doing well, um, they might be looking to cut people and they're looking for let's say, cheaper personnel. But I will focus on the positive side for today. So again, they're looking to change the current situation. If you know this as a recruiter, as if you know this as an applicant, and you know that the recruiter's trying to change something, um, they need to find out what that is. And I'll tell you later how to find out what they really want to change. Because now that you know that there are three things that you can actually take advantage of. So scarcity effect, be distinct. Overconfidence effect, make sure that you always understand what you're applying for by being grounded and humble. Status quo, know that they're always looking to change certain things. And that's something you have to find out as the applicant. Um, yeah, and I think let's go to the next slide, Danica. How will recruiters then react to your resume based on their immediate needs? We know that recruiters are driven, and humans in general are driven by three major factors: lack of time, lack of info, and lack of financial resources. And again, always remember, and sometimes we don't see this, but sometimes people say recruiters are monsters. But at the end of the day, recruiters are people as well. So they don't always make rational decisions. They're just like you and me. They play different roles. They're just a recruiter. And of course, they also use mental shortcuts to make their own decisions about the one who's sitting on the other end of the table. Now, to give an example, in terms of lack of time, um, on the applicant side, if you're applying to, for example, I'm just going to mention a random industry. It's not an advice, just an example. FMCG. Again, recruiters are looking at so many CVs per day, and they only, what is it, Danik? How long do they actually look at the CVs in terms of
Well,
seconds?
well, ako as a recruiter before, I look at CVs, especially when there are a lot. I look at them for just 7 seconds per CV.
Hey, that's short. That's like your answer was actually 7 seconds. So that's how long people actually look at CVs. But guys, imagine that, right? Um, they don't take an hour to look at one CV because they're pressured by time. So again, so the pro tip is to make sure you stand out. Make sure that you're scarce. and highly valued or by being distinct. So again, the pro tip there is never submit a generic CV. Never be like, okay, this CV I'm gonna send out to 100 companies. I'm just gonna, well, a few of them will sort of, I get a hit rate out from a few of them. Uh, you
Yes.
will just look, right, Danica, you will just look like everyone else.
Yes, that's right. Lalo na if there are a lot of CVs. But on the flip side, though, which is something I'd like to bring up with you, here's a secret that not all recruiters would admit. It's that if there are too few candidates to choose from, they'll look at your CV longer than other recruiters.
Exactly. So those are for the positions that are sort of, I guess, hard to fill, Danica.
Yes, hard to fill. Kunwari, for example, some
But can you give
certain executive
examples?
positions, like certain executive positions, but the budget doesn't look executive. For example, hirap mag-hire para dyan eh.
Okay. So exactly, no. It really depends on the type of position that you're hiring for, how long they will look at it. But again, I think that the main thing here is be distinct and don't try to find ways how you can be different. And I'll also explain to you how later on.
Yes.
Um, exactly. So um, also in the lack of info, just going on to the second one, in the event that you're shortlisted, so again, applicant site, recruiters will perform social media checks because they simply have a lack of info, but they only have one, let's say one page. If they do have the time and you're in a further stage, they will do a social media check on you. So what I want to sort of give to you guys as a message is, and they will use this as a mental shortcut again in how they make decisions. Make sure you don't have embarrassing photos or offensive posts. It can be quite you might not be aware, but there is certain software. I'm not sure if this is a thing now, Danica. Maybe you can confirm. There is certain software to run all of this social media on one person.
Well, merong kaming hinahire ng mga, I forgot what it's called, but they're kind of like private
Business
investigators.
intelligence. Yeah, somewhere along those lines. Yeah. So know that actually is a trend, and know that it's hard to remove your digital footprints once it's on there. Even if you delete it,
Yeah.
there are always some traces. So be very careful though.
And actually,
Um,
just to add on that, well, even if your intentions are pure or if you didn't do anything wrong in that photo, because of the limited amount of time that a recruiter can help you defend yourself, they will not take that chance. They'll just assume what they want to assume because they only have that much time to spend on you and they just move on to the next candidate.
I also heard from one of my previous people I've worked with. They used to say perception is reality.
Yes.
So whatever people perceive, whatever is readily available out there. Because again, guys, lack of info, say they will make mental shortcuts to decide about you. So whatever's out there, make sure that it's sort of clean. Um, so and also moving on to the third one, lack of resources. So again, I saw this earlier um, in one of the answers. So recruiters have budgets, indeed. They don't have all the money in the world to hire the most expensive person out there. So if you demand an unrealistic salary, recruiters will do question your thinking. Um, so for example, if there's a position that on average the salary is 25,000 pesos, and all of a sudden you barge in and you say, hey, I want 90,000 for that particular for the job. That sort of says, did you actually research the function that you're looking for? Because they would then question your critical thinking, right? It's quite out of bounds to say if 25,000 initially you're asking 90,000. So again, remember guys the overconfidence effect. So always make sure that you they put that extra effort to really gauge what this job entails or what the function entails. Of course, there are websites out there who will give you the average salary range. That's all publicly available. It's not a secret. Um, so look at those and use that as sort of as your reference. Doesn't have to be pinpointed, but sort of that as your reference. So again, recruiters are people too. They also make shortcuts based on lack of time, lack of info, lack of financial resources. But then again, right? Moving on to the next slide. How then? What's one way of you being distinct from the others? What's one way of getting that edge, right? To be for you to be scarce. Now, you have to be aware that people are trying to change a certain business situation, but you have to find out what it is. So here are a few tips. The first one is a simple desk research, Google research. Study the latest news about the company you're looking to apply for. You can find a lot of things on their website, which is mostly called under the section newsroom or press releases, to be more specific. That's where they disclose certain things. They also have a section which is called annual reports, where they also disclose their plans. But social media will also already do. So just look them up on Facebook if they have one. Insta, not so much now. I mean, not yet, at least for most companies, particularly the corporate ones. But ask yourself the question: are they launching a new product? Are they launching a new service? Are they doing well? Is the company entering a new market? Is management looking perhaps to lay off its employees? So that's a red flag for you. So you have to find out that in advance. So curiosity really matters, everyone. Um, so you can never be too prepared. It's always good to have the information with you. Also, ask during the interview if you cannot find it on the internet. Uh, just ask during the interview. Know that the word interview actually means in between perspectives. Inter means between. So mostly, when I was a fresh grad and I applied for my first job, I was just sitting there, just taking the questions I was answering. Sort of question, I answer. They question, and I answer. And then at the end of the day, I was like, "You have any questions?" No, I don't. It's a very common situation. But also, always understand that the interview in itself is an opportunity for you to get to know the company. Because only by asking you will know certain things that are not disclosed online. Always remember it's a two-way street. And actually, Danica, maybe you can confirm this. Candidates who ask questions actually have an edge over others.
Well, actually, for some recruiters, they do think that um, candidates who ask questions seem more interested in the role, but that technically doesn't have much bearing in getting the job. Basically, them asking you if you have questions mean, do you want to get to know about us before you commit to an employer-employee relationship with us? It's more of like a relationship, trying to check, hey, do you really love us? Do you really want to be with us? It's kind of like that. Happy
Oh, that's
Valentine's.
oh, that's interesting. Now, guys, that's interesting because again, you'll see that they lack info. So they're trying to. It's sort of a probing question. I mean, hearing you, Danik, it's sort of trying to probe. Is this guy really well, this is a long-term relationship, sort of to say. Is it really? So always know that those questions are opportunities for you to also gauge, right? So never take those opportunities for granted. And in certain situations, this will give you an edge. So let's understand a bit the candidate fit assessments. Danica, maybe you can proceed to the next slide. Again, just as a general sort of notion that I want to give to everyone. How do we understand the economics behind the candidate fit assessment? We put here degrees might get you the date, but if you really want that person over, you want to win his or her heart, you need to fully understand what the person is going through. So because degrees are just one step, but never solely depend on that. Um, I mean, I've made that personal mistake. Um, when I graduated, knowing, okay, I graduated cum laude, that was this sort of silent arrogance that I had. And trust me, they see it. Even if you try to hide it, they can just hear by the way you speak, the way you ask questions, the way you interact. Again, so it might get you the date, might get you an open door. Um, but if you really want to sort of pinpoint if you're a fit for that position, you need to go a lot further than that. What do you
Yes.
think about this, Danica? I saw you unmuted yourself. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think a lot about that, it being equated to a date. I remember, well, rather, I equate an arrogant candidate to a handsome jock who thinks that he's the most eligible bachelor ever. It's kind of like that. Then he approaches a cute girl, for example, and then he just says about how great he is, and the girl's like, but do you even care about me? It's kind of like that when you're pursuing a really, really good job and you think that you're the best candidate. It's about the same thing, about the same situation, just different context. Do you agree, Melboy?
Yeah, I think you're trying to figure out whether that is a good match, right? And it's an important thing to consider because you'll probably spend most of your time within that job more than you spend time with your friends and family. So it's a very important thing to consider. But of course, we'll also give you tips on how to sort of um, then what to do next, right? Moving on to the next slide, Danica. Again, so remember the three major concepts that I pointed out today regarding behavioral economics. So scarcity effect, overconfidence effect, and status quo biases. Time and time again, these have been proven to be um, part of human nature, and we have to be aware of this. Sometimes, I myself, we are like this, and we are not even conscious about it. We don't even know that we're doing this. I mean, that's the power of economics and behavioral economics. It's done research in that field. So scarcity effect, what do you do? How do you take advantage? Make sure you stand out. Um, there's so many other people applying, but pointing out the exact business problem. And again, remember, that's again taps into the status quo bias. They're looking to change something within their company. And if you can pinpoint that exact thing, that already puts you ahead. So make sure that there's something that makes you stand out. And by doing it, and one simple thing is just doing the research and making it known during the interview. Overconfidence effect, again, we just talked about this. Do not solely rely on your credentials. Recruiters will see right through it. So always stay grounded, be humble, try to learn more things. Um, I mean, there's really no substitute for hard work. Hard work during the job, before the job, for those who have businesses. And status quo biases, recruiters are always looking to change something, find out what they want to change, either by looking on the news or asking them during the interview, hey, why is this position open? Right? Why are you even hiring in the first place? Is it because you're replacing someone, or is it because the team is growing? So we always have to sort of figure that out. And um, really, curiosity matters. So, what results do company want to have when hiring? On the next slide. So, how do you then tackle these three things? Lack of time, lack of info, lack of money. So, lack of time, what do they want to see? What do recruiters want to see? So, speed and execution, grit and hustle. When you do work and everyone lacks time. That's why there are deadlines, right? I guess most of us, or not all of us here, have experienced and are experiencing deadlines. So what really matters at the end of the day is more than just your credentials, really your character, grit and hustle. This is something you develop over time. Um, for lack of info, because people do lack information, you holding that information, insights, you doing your research, coming up with new ideas that they have never thought about. It takes a lot of courage to put that out there during an interview, actually. Hey, have you guys thought about this? Um, that might actually trigger them. So that puts you already a step forward. And of course, I saw this earlier during the poll or the survey, lack of money. So what do actually companies want to do at the end of the day? Maximize profits, optimize the revenues, minimize the cost, increase the value that they give to their shareholders. So all of these three factors, they all explain why recruiters behave the way that they do and why applicants behave the way that they do. So it's actually both sides of the table. And again, I'd like to pinpoint the topic of branding, um, personal branding to be specific, on the next slide. Okay. All right, there. Thank you. So I'd like to pinpoint the topic of branding. So remember when Danica and I sort of talked about perception is reality. Although, like internally, I'd be the best person out there, but if people don't perceive it that way, if people find something on your social media, just a very, very simple example, then they might already be sort of turned off, to use the dating terms. So then how do you put yourself out there? How do you look? How do you speak? How do you act? All of that forms part of your personal brand. And no, people do make mental shortcuts about you on what they perceive, what they see about you. With that, I would like to segue a bit to the topic of personal branding in relation to behavioral economics, because behavioral economics, guys, it always depends on what they see and what they perceive. Danica, for the part of personal branding,
Yes, so now you all know what recruiters think when they're trying to hire someone. This topic is in relation on to rather how to make you attractive to them. So personal branding is a soft and inbound form of selling. It is your message, it is your story. Basically, it means you have to be authentic because they're looking for the value that you can truly deliver to them. For example, if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking for a business economist, I'm going to look for someone who clearly shares that he is a valuable member of the team and is really a talented business economist. So you really have to sell yourself in a way that shows that you are valuable to someone, that they do need you and your skills. So, why do people need you? So, just to eliminate the idea of jobs being created just for the sake of having jobs. No, jobs were created because there was a need. There needs to be a solution for a specific problem. And companies hire because they have pain points. So, in case you don't know what a pain point means yet, a pain point is basically a problem that could be solved, but they're just looking for a solution somewhere. So if, for example, a company is losing money and the issue is because the accountant is mismanaging finances, obviously they're going to look for an accountant, probably a CPA or maybe a business administration graduate who's very, very good at managing money. That's how they solve a pain point. They're going to look for someone who's talented enough to solve these kinds of problems. And that's how you build your brand around it. So if you're going to create your personal brand, I just want to share that it is not you selling just for the sake of selling and getting money. Actually, in general, we're not selling just for the sake of selling. We're selling something such as our products, our services, our solutions, our talents, primarily because we want to help people. We're selling because we want to help people. We want them to get the value that they need, the solution that they need. It just so happens that they pay you as a compensation or something in exchange of the value that you gave. It's just like in that anime Full Metal Alchemist. Ano ba yan? The law of equivalent exchange. It's just like that. Give something valuable and you get something equally as valuable in return. Okay, so just to give us some icebreaker, here's a case study. A case study that we will analyze using all of the theories and concepts that we talked about. So, malapit na yung Valentine's Day, guys. Alam kong nagpo-post na kayo sa quarantine tribute tips. What should I give my jowa for Valentine's Day? Or maybe you're asking yourself, or maybe nagpo-post pa nga kayo sa subtle clown traits. Guys, lakog jowa. Baka naman, maybe you're posting stuff like that on those Facebook groups. Let's read this particular case study. Maybe ma-hurt kayo, yung iba dyan, baka ma-hurt magbasa nito. I'm just gonna read it anyway. So, Jane says, my ex is asking me out for a friendly dinner, but I feel like he just wants to get back together with me. What a clown. I'm still trying to find the path that's meant for me. I mean, it's not him, it's me. I'm afraid to hurt his feelings to the point where he'll give up on all chances that we can get back together. What should I do? So Luisa responds, just be firm with him and tell him you're still not thinking about getting back together now or maybe even ever. Tell him you're still trying to find yourself. Madami nagsasabi niyan. The one you'll end up with may or may not be him. You have to realize that. Sorry na lang sa mga naiiyak dyan. Baka masyadong masakit yung conversation na to. But what if he'll hate me and cut ties with me forever? Jane says. Then Louisa ends the conversation by saying, if it's meant to be, it will be. If he really loves you, he'll come after you in whatever way he can. If you still won't give in, he'll find a way to better himself so he can be the best version of himself when he gets back together with you. Sana all. But that actually still depends. Even if he loves you so much, if the next person can cater to his needs as much as you can, he'll go after that person. But that's okay. Besides, maybe after then, he'll be single again and will be searching for someone like you in his life. By then, maybe you'll be ready for him. Maybe that's when you two can get back together and rebuild your relationship. So, bakit ito economics? Economics nga ba to? Eh, tungkol naman to sa love eh. Ano meron dyan? Well, hello. This is the economics part. This is a real conversation between an employee, a past employee, complaining about her employer to a friend. So Jane actually said, my former employer is asking me to have dinner with them. Familiar. Yan yung kanina, di ba? I really don't want to talk about my future plans for my career, but I feel like they're luring me into becoming their employee again. Na-miss siya ng employer, balik ka na. Pero, I just want to explore more options. Ayaw ko, baka nababaan siya sa sweldo, ayaw na niya sa trabaho. But I'm afraid to hurt them and end up getting blacklisted forever. Gusto niya may option siya na bumalik. I still want to be open to come back to them. What should I do? So Luisa responds, no harm in saying that you're open to come back to work for them. Just say that you're looking for the opportunity that best fits you at this point in time. It may or may not be them. Familiar? But what if I lose them for good? What if they won't hire me anymore? So Luisa says, in my experience, if they're really eager to get you, they won't give up on you. Either they chase after you as much as they can or stop and work on being better for you when you decide to come back. But that actually still depends. Even if they like you so much, if the next candidate can cater to their needs as much as you can, they'll go after that person. But that's okay. Besides, maybe when the employer needs to hire someone like you again and you're ready to come back, you can work things out and work together again. So, familiar, right? Akala nyo sa love, love, love lang yung mga ganyan. It actually happens as well in the workplace, in your career, in your profession. So, ano masasabi mo dito, Coach Melboy?
Yeah, and I think funny nga yung analogy with love, right? With dating. Kasi when you really look at it, employer-employee, it's also a relationship. To be honest, you might actually be spending a lot more time with your employer rather than your girlfriend or your
Yes,
boyfriend.
yun talaga yung jojowain nyo.
So if you're still studying, you're looking for your first job, keep that in mind. You will be spending a lot more time at your job rather than with your past or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. No, but I think this is a typical example of Jane obviously after resigning, right? I think she has resigned earlier. I mean she so
She did resign, yeah.
yeah, she did. So obviously this is an example of her being perceived as a scarce or sort of unique,
Resource,
distinct.
yes.
Yeah, because if you read between the lines, guys, probably they've been trying to look for someone for the past few months. They've had their interviews with other people, but still they choose to come back and invite Jane. So there must be something that makes her special, right? She hasn't done so much, but I guess her work experience made her special. So she is perceived as a scarce person within the job market. And at the same time, they've been spending months trying to find a person, trying to change around the situation internally. I think yeah. So by then talking to Jane, they hope to solve that particular situation because they know that Jane has got the skills, right? Probably she also branded herself like that. Now, this is a typical way also. I mean, it's called actually signaling. The employer is signaling that they need something, that she is of high value, that she has something that others don't, and and certainly Jane has, well, let's say most of the bargaining power on her end, sort of. parang sikat si, ano, si Jane, popular si Jane. And I think it's really Jane's choice here. I'm not going to sort of give advice on whether Jane should pursue that or should do a different job or should find a different job. What I'm just trying to say here is um, they took a mental shortcut as well. Right? This is all about a mental shortcut. They couldn't find someone, so they resort to whoever they knew, and they know that Jane is the right one for the job. Right? So scarcity effect. And I think, what do you think, Danica? What else do you see here? Oh, since you read out the dating parts, I'm also going to ask you a question.
Yeah, actually, you said most of it, but I just want to reiterate that when there is um, a relationship in with anyone actually, and you're going to negotiate in that relationship, it's more or less similar in every relationship. Just like in this case, in a romantic relationship, it's similar to an employer employee relationship. I just want to reiterate what Melboy said. You'll be spending more time with your employer than you will with your jowa. You're technically gonna get married to them, of course, if you decide you want to stay with them for longer than what is said to be the normal amount of time. You're more or less going to commit more to your employer if you choose to, of course. And that's how you learn to build relationships. So relationships, I would say, are very important. And knowing now about behavioral economics, you should be knowing how to manage these relationships, not just in your romantic relationships, but also in your professional relationships. Tama ba yan?
Yeah, yeah, no, certainly, Danica. Maybe I don't know. Is this the time where we hear from the audience?
Oh yes, feeling ko na hangover na sila sa love, love, love. Yan. Marami kasing kids dito. Hi guys! Anyway, so I am going to share something, right? I'm going to share where you can ask questions, okay? So all I ask is you go to menti.com. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the slide. I want to ask you to go to menti.com and follow that code on top 8740671 and go ahead and ask your questions. You have about, oh, let's extend na lang ng konti. Ano, you have about 15 to 20 minutes to ask whatever question you have. Okay? So, to those who have any questions, go ahead, feel free to ask. We'd like to request that you ask your questions through menti.com so that we can flash your question on screen. Okay, so let's just give them a few seconds. Maybe
Yeah.
they are going to, where maybe they're typing or something. Shout out pala sa ibang coaches namin dito. Thank you so much for supporting your colleague, Coach Melboy.
Hey
Thank you so
guys,
much.
for joining.
Good evening sa inyo. Okay,
Good evening.
we are
And for
just
spending
waiting.
your Friday evening with us.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much. Okay, what's up, Mr. Coach Melvin? Oh, okay. Anong comment mo dyan, Melboy?
What's up? What's up? What's up? What do you want to know?
Thank you. Next question. Baka may
Thumbs up
question
natin
ka
yan.
dyan.
Thumbs up natin.
Ay, matambos up ka ba? Hindi ko pwede i-thumbs up. Okay. More questions, please. Okay. Okay,
Yo,
thank
what's
you.
up ulit? Hi guys.
Hello. So, if you guys want to talk to Coach Melboy, I assume you're all on our platform already, Virtual Career Academy Premium. Pwede nyo naman i-chat doon si Coach Melboy. Hello, thank you so much for the shout out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Puro mga shout out tayo dito. Thank
Shout out
you.
guys.
Thank you for the shout out. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, maghihintay na lang muna tayo. Ikaw, Melboy, meron ka bang last few minutes na gustong i-share to our audience? Maybe some tips. We had a long discussion, but maybe you have some tips you'd like to share.
Baka
Okay.
naman daw.
Oo. Hi, Coach Kita. Okay. Baka naman may tips there. Actually, we said so much already. So, yun nga. So maybe a recap or a
Maybe,
summary.
oh, yeah, maybe a quick summary will do. No? I think, while the topic may sound very complex, behavioral economics, at the end of the day, it's really about how we make decisions, how the other side of the table makes decisions, which is impacted really by just a few factors that all of us are familiar with. Lack of info, lack of time, lack of money. I've been saying that for like 4 or 5 times already.
Yes.
But I think um, it's just looking at the learning objectives again of these people. Hold on.
Is there a
There.
way, yeah, okay. A question. Is there a way we can pursue larger salaries if we think the researched average salary for that position isn't doing our profile any justice? Okay, ikaw muna, Melboy, from an
Okay, that yeah.
economist point of view.
Sure, sure. No, kasi how it works with those kind of websites which show the average salary, it's people basically putting in their salary whenever they sign up for those kind of websites. That's how they take out those numbers. Um, when it comes to for that position isn't doing our profile any justice. I think if, if it, for example, is seniority, it's a very, for example, economists. I think here in the Philippines, you have economist one, two, and three, senior economist, junior. Um, you'd have to, I mean, when you do ask for a higher salary, you have to have certain grounds because they will ask you why. If you're just barging in without telling them, oh, okay, I'm going to ask 50,000 instead of 30,000, then what is that particular added value? And you have to be able to elaborate on that um, to the recruiter. Because if you're not able to elaborate on that, then they might think that it's just a random number that you're just having in your mind. So for it to do justice to your profile, you have to know why and what is that added value that you give on top of the average salary. So the average salary means the average performance of people. What then is it that you're giving extra? And that you have to find out and sort of explain to the one on the other side of the table. Only then you'll be able to sort of justify it. That's my
Okay.
take on it. Danica, what do you think?
Well, I think we should recognize that asking for a salary is determined by particularly three things. One is obviously the industry figure, the industry average. Second is what Melboy mentioned, the value that you can deliver, and third is of course the budget. Can the employer afford the average? Even sometimes it doesn't happen. So um, when it comes to measuring your value, just to add up on what Melboy said, if you want to measure your value, you consider three things. One, can you help this company increase their revenue? Siyempre, pag tumaas yung revenue dahil sa'yo, mas willing sila na itaas yung salary nyo. Pero kung hindi ko yung key player of delivering revenue to the company, medyo malabo that you're going to get a higher salary than what you'd be expecting. Another factor other than increasing revenue is reducing the cost. Ang laki ng binabayad ng mga tao just to help the company reduce the cost. I mean, it might be counterintuitive, but it happens. Kasi for them, malaki mo na bayaran ko now para ma-reduce ang cost, pero I'm future-proofing my expenses. That's what they're doing. And third, can you help increase stakeholder value? Which means, kaya mo bang magdala ng more followers? Kaya mo ba magdagdag ng mga genuine likers on my Facebook page? Can you increase my relationships with higher level officials, for example, or executives? Can you increase my leads, number of prospective clients? Kasi if you can, they can potentially convert to revenue. If you can do that, you are valuable. And that's mainly how you can get possibly a salary higher than what is the industry average. So agree ba tayo doon, Coach Melboy?
Yes, I agree. I agree. Fully agree. I don't have anything to add to
Okay,
that.
so let's go to the next question. Dami nating tanong. Hi, Coach Melboy and Danny. Got any tips on how to really sell your skills to the recruiter with confidence? I'm kind of shy and I get nervous about talking to recruiters during job interviews. Well, I guess I can answer that. Tips on how to resell your skills. Una sa lahat, if you're going to think about the interview, eliminate the idea that it is a session where the interviewer tries to intimidate you. There's that particular mindset, wrong mindset, that people think that you have to go into this interview because it's an initiation, right? It's not. It's just that the interviewer genuinely wants to get to know you. Hindi kanya kilala eh. Kaya siya nagtatanong ng mga ganitong tanong. Hindi kanya kilala. That's why he or she wants to get to know you better by asking these questions. Might be difficult to answer for you because you're trying to impress them. But know that they're asking them because they want to get to know you. I think that to start off with that can help you reduce your anxiety and increase your confidence that they're just really trying to get to know you in the same way that they're trying to get to know you, you are trying to get to know them. It's a date. I mean, just like the analogy kanina, that this is like a romantic relationship. It's a date. It's like your first date, getting to know each other, seeing if both of you can fit well with each other. Ganun lang yun. If you see it in that way, then maybe lesser na yung anxiety nyo and lack of confidence. But even if in your own romantic relationships, yung first date nyo makes you nervous, then I'm sorry, don't know how to help on that. Maybe si Coach Melboy, alam niya paano mag-deal with those kinds of things.
Yeah, no, I think I sort of feel how this person is feeling right now because I mean we've all been there. I've been there.
Yes.
I've never had any interviews, and then this random person starts asking me questions. But I do believe there's a beauty in preparing actually for sort of with a friend, with your parents, with your relatives, sort of them firing questions at you can already sort of prepare you mentally for whatever will happen when the job or when the interviewer asks you question. So again, you can practice. The more you practice, the more familiar you get with the answers to those type of questions because there will always be questions which are the same. So which is called a sort of a mock interview with your relatives or people you know. Um, Even if you're kind of shy, that's fine. It's totally fine. Everyone gets nervous. I also still get nervous whenever I talk to people. I'm nervous now. Maybe you don't you don't see it that much, but it's part of it, and that's why preparation is so important. Um, how do you really sell your skills? Know your skills first before you go into that interview. You have to really know that first.
Yes.
Don't go into the interview empty-handed.
Yes.
Because certainly, one of the questions, what are your strengths?
That's right.
It's the
Actually,
same
tama
question.
ka dyan. You should really get to know yourself. Because when you're there and you're not prepared, you might say things that might be detrimental to your interview. Might be not because you said the wrong things, but because you said things that they didn't need to know. They wanted to know something else. Pero dahil naubos na yung time, lack of resource is, time is a lack of resource. If naubos nyo na lahat ng time na yun and you didn't get to share to the recruiter how awesome you are, then that is a lost opportunity already. So, tama yung sinabi ni Coach Melboy na you have to get to know yourself, practice some more, build your confidence. It really does help. Okay. So, next question. What should we expect once we
Yeah.
I can't
Sige, I'll
answer
take this.
that.
I'll take this. Guys, micro and macro. Macro is okay. As economists, so macroeconomics, what are the trends that are impacting the business environment at the macro level? Demographics. So that's all top down. Microeconomics is why do businesses behave the way that they do in a competitive environment. So micro is, let's say, bottom up. So there's the businesses to businesses within the industry. Macroeconomics are every other external factor. So really the top down. What should we expect? So micro actually has a lot more on behavior, whereas macro is really the consolidation or the aggregate level summed up, and sort of it really shows in how countries perform. Um, but I guess it takes years to sort of deep dive these courses. But what I just want you to guys know is both of these fields are affected by psychology as well. So that's a sort of a new perspective, um, having a role here. But yeah, thank you for the
Okay.
economics
Thank you
question.
for
Na-test
the
ako.
review. Okay, next question. Can you give some piece of advice to those individuals who wants to transition their career on other position? Example from software engineer to programmer. Okay. So, sige, ikaw muna, Coach Melba. May ma-advise ka or gusto mo ako muna?
Sure. Actually, know people who did this. So I'm just gonna give you examples on how they did this. I have a few friends who made this switch within the IT world. Um, what they did is they took on pet projects. Mga ano, they have their own kind of side projects beside their work, where they try it out and when they go in when they went into the interview, they show the project that they've done in that particular field that they were transitioning to. So even them without having the actual job or the transition made, they already showed that they can already provide value because they learned in their spare time. They did a project, and that project actually was already in that field, and they just showed it during the interview. So practically, that's how you can sort of already give the value upfront without, I mean, you're talking to the person, you show what you've accomplished, and then up to them to assess. So practically, that's one step what you can do to switch or to make a switch to a different kind of job or discipline. Um, Other advice would be already talk to people within that field. Right, there's no harm in asking them questions. What is it like to be in that field? Do you have any tips for me? Perhaps also recommendations if you've worked with those people already. So recommendations are also quite a big part of the advice that I give you. Coach Danica, do you have
Okay.
any?
Well,
Mhm.
actually, if I want to relate this to the topic, if you want to transition into a different career, you have to check if there is a demand for that career. If there is no demand, it will be very difficult to transition into that career. But if there is a demand, you have to check what particular skills in that particular profession is in demand. So if you identify that, if you don't have it yet, you can study it and pursue some projects to show your competence on that. Now, if you already have those in demand skills for this new profession that you're pursuing, it shouldn't be too difficult to transition. But note that you have to check the demand for that. Now, if it comes to your own personal feelings about it, well, we can talk separately. You can just chat me on the platform. But short answer is you will need to understand the options that you want to take if you want to pursue this new goal that you have. Okay. So
Just to
next,
add, Danica,
yes,
find out your why because they will ask you
yes,
why are you switching. In the past, I've also made a similar decision where I switched from one discipline to another discipline, and they always ask you why are you switching. So
yes,
when you find out that why, that is already one step ahead. Okay, sure, justify why you're
yes,
switching.
yes,
So find out why. Yeah.
yes. People are attracted if you know your purpose. So that's a different topic. Maybe we'll have
It's a bit
another
cliche,
webinar on
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit cliche, but it is important. It
Yes.
is, yeah.
Actually, they ask a lot about that. It sounds cliche to some people, but employers, recruiters, and even if you're running a business, you want to meet investors, they usually ask that. They want to know your why. Because if you don't know your why, you look like you're shaken, that you don't really have a foundation, and they don't like that. They're scared to invest on you, to invest a salary on you, to put their money on your business. They'll be scared. So you need to show them that you know your why. Okay, next. Are experienced applicants favored over fresh graduates by recruiters? Well, my answer to that is not all the time. And I don't want to answer that in the financial aspect. Hey, Melboy, maybe you want to answer that in the financial aspect.
Financial aspect. But okay, financial aspect, pure financial, it really depends on the budget,
Yes.
right? If they have the budget to go for the more experienced one, financially, they will go for that person. But I think if I may on the character side, Kanika,
Yeah,
if I may on
sige,
the
sige. Well,
sorry,
okay.
sorry.
Well, okay, tama yun. Pag may budget yung company for more experienced applicants, yun yung hahabulin nila. There are a lot of factors to
Not
consider when they're finding the right
yes.
match, not just your price. They're also looking for your character. Sometimes fresh graduates have better character than the more experienced one. It depends. It depends. I mean, they would like to know if the fresh graduate has the character to survive a particular work setting. If they do, then they can just train these fresh grads. Doesn't matter if they're not experienced. They are willing to train. Kung kayo willing to be trained, employers are willing to train. These kinds of employers exist.
I
Okay.
remember my first job, and there was the same question within the team before they hired me. Are we going for experienced person or are we going for a fresh grad? So I was a fresh grad, and there was a experienced person, actually the sort of my competitor. And then later on, they told me why they went for the fresh grad, and the reason is um, blank page. I didn't know anything. That was an advantage because it helped me
Hindi
to
ka
come up
na
with new
jaded.
ideas. Yeah. So I mean, it's more like I won't be so arrogant in saying, "Oh, I already know this," right? I'll be there with an attitude to learn and to contribute my new ideas, my own ideas, um, because they wanted me to have a blank page already, or a sort of blank slate. So that's why they went for a
Yes.
fresh grad. Just a personal story.
Yes, actually ako rin my first job I was the only fresh grad. They chose me because of my character and they were just willing to train kasi sa company na yon they were really going to train newbies anyway. So what's the difference? That's what they think at that time. So yes, experienced applicants might have an edge, but so do fresh grads. Okay. Next question. I'm sorry guys, we only have to accommodate one more question. Maybe we can answer this in the platform na lang, yung mga natirang question. So stay tuned inside the platform. We'll answer the rest of the question. So this is our last question. Once we got into the job that we worked hard to enter, can we instantly request how much the salary we will be having? Well, actually, once you get the job, they really will tell you your salary. And actually, in some cases, you can negotiate unless they say this is a hard figure. Am I right, Coach Melboy?
Yeah, there's always room for negotiation, even if they say that there is none. Right? If they really want you, they will make some improvements. But also know that this might not always be financial. There may also be non-monetary benefits. So by non-monetary may also be, for example, leaves, right?
Yes.
Or what else? What else?
Medical,
Yeah, here medical. That's another one.
reimbursements,
No,
medical
reimbursements,
reimbursements,
right?
HMO, insurance.
Yeah. For example,
Yes,
but
so
to sort of also share with you the recruiter side, or if you're in a relationship, and you're new in a relationship, and then suddenly someone asks you, "Oh, give me a very expensive gift," and you're like, "We've only been together for what, 5 days? You're only new in the job." So also know that that's how it sometimes come across. You have to be very careful when you ask these kind of questions when it comes to your salary. So also know that that's how it might be perceived on the other end. That, oh, this guy's just demanding too much, right? Without any justification. So you always have to be able to back it up. Always back up why you want a certain raise or a certain higher salary from the very start. Without backing it up, there's no grounds, and they will just think that you're arrogant.
yes. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, and just to go back to what Coach Melboy said, salary isn't the only compensation you'll be getting when you get a job. There's the benefits. For example, if sakitin ka and you think your salary isn't enough, kung merong in-offer na health insurance or HMO yung employer mo, that can pay for your medical expenses. If gusto mo mag-gym, pero feeling mo hindi enough yung salary, your employer may potentially give you a gym membership. It happens. I'm not even kidding. Pwede sila magbigay ng gym membership. You may also get reimbursements for your clothes. If you want to buy new office clothes pero ayaw mong gamitin yung pera mo, they can reimburse your office clothes. So those kinds of example, kind of like money din sila. You consider, I mean, you guys are economists. You have accounting in your subjects. You would consider benefits also as assets, just like how cash are assets. Am I right? Tama ba
Oh,
ako
work
dun?
from home is another one, Danica.
Yes, work from home.
That's a big benefit now.
Big benefit yun, di ka
If you can,
nagagastos.
no
Oo.
more transpo. You can just sit at the comfort of your home. Um, so some actually it is a new negotiation now. I mean, it's a trend now.
It's a
You
new
want a higher
benefit.
salary? Yes. Do you want a higher salary, or you just want to work from home 100%? That's actually what people want
Yeah.
to go for. So that's another
Exactly.
benefit.
Actually, just to end this question, I want to bring up my experiences in recruitment. There are some candidates who would prefer better benefits than a high salary. It happens. Parang gusto nila, okay, ganito yung offer mo sa akin na salary. Ano yung benefits? Ay, pangit ng benefits sa'yo ako. It happens. Because to them, some benefits are very expensive if they just get it on their own. So if their employer can give those benefits, kunin nila yun. Kahit hindi yun yung best salary about among all options. Of course, depende yun sa needs nila. So these things happen. So benefits are just as important as salaries. Okay? May madagdag ka pa ba doon, Coach Melboy?
Thank you. It's just really important to consider that there's so much more than just salary. I know it's very important, but whenever you make a decision, look at the overall package. Is my advice.
Yes. Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for asking these questions. So to end our call or our session, maybe Coach Melboy would like to add a few parting words. Let me just share again the ending slide. Ayan.
Yeah. So again, I
Sige.
just
Sige, go ahead.
yeah. Okay. Thanks. Again, I just wanted to thank everyone in this call. Thank you for showing up. Of course, that's number one. Thank you for spending your Friday evening with us. I personally hope and really hope that I was able to give you value today. That you guys have learned a few things, a lot of things today. It's always my pleasure to share, of course, my own personal stories, what I've learned over the past few years, and I hope this will help you grow. Whether you're a student, whether you're currently looking for a job, or whether you have a business, I hope these insights will help you in dealing with other people, in managing the relationships, and creating new relationships. At the end of the day, it's really about building and creating relationships. That's why we made that analogy, and because again, a lot of our decisions are impacted by the people and the things around us. And again, it's a great privilege and a great honor to have been here today and share with you my insights and my personal story with all of you. So to everyone in this call in Zoom, to everyone on Facebook, thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you everyone for being here with us. So before we end, we'd love to hear some of your feedback. If you could just give us some feedback in our platform, or even just here in our Zoom meeting chat, or even to our Facebook audience, if you'd like to leave some comments on our live video, go ahead. Thank you so much for coming. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to see you again in our other monthly webinars. We'll update you for the next topics. In particular, next month is about the social psychology behind interviews. And on the third month of this year, which is March, we'll be having a career fair. If you're interested to go to that, we'd love to see you there as well. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Have a good night. Enjoy your dinner.
All right, have a good Friday, everyone. Cheers to the weekend.
Okay, bye.